You need more sleep. I need more sleep. We all need more and better sleep. I think everybody in this country needs more and better sleep. And today on Deviant Off Script, that's exactly what we're going to learn how to do from Dr. Leah Kaylor. She is a clinical psychologist and the FBI's sleep expert, and she's going to give us all sorts of tips on how to get better sleep. She's the author of the new book, The Sleep Awakening, and at the FBI, she helps agents and law enforcement get better sleep, deal with trauma. She makes their lives better. Through this interview, she's made my life better with a few tips, and hopefully she's going to help make yours better too. So let's get into it. Let's get better sleep. Dr. Leah Kaylor, thank you so much for joining us today on Deviant Off Script. It's so great to have you here. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about sleep. There's so much to talk about with what you do and sleep. And this is something that's really actually very interesting to me because you deal, I'll let you say what your actual job is, but my understanding broadly is that, you deal with folks at the Bureau or in law enforcement who have had to deal with traumatic situations or things that may impact your sleep. And as someone who spent a lot of time in journalism and has talked to a lot of law enforcement folks, there's a lot of crossover about the things that we all see and witness and deal with. And so I'm really fascinated to sort of get your perspective. So starting sort of from the beginning, what is it that you do at the FBI?
Sure. So my job is, there's a lot of variety, which is very exciting. And so kind of just in a very basic nutshell, and I guess before I jump into that, I should say that everything that I'm going to share here on this podcast are my own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and biases. And this podcast, none of it's endorsed by the FBI or sponsored. So whenever it comes to my position, it's varies day to day, which makes it very exciting for me. But I work one-on-one, providing individual therapy for either our agents, our professional staff, joint task force officers, or even family members sometimes. If it's appropriate, I might find referrals out into the community for someone who maybe needs something very particular. I also do tons of psychoeducation. That's a huge piece of what I do. So educating our own staff, but also maybe partners in law enforcement or in the community about all kinds of mental health topics. So of course, sleep, trauma, a lot of suicide awareness and prevention, and then just generally a lot of resilience and wellness and health type of topics. And then I also will do crisis work. So if there's something big that happens, I may be called out to help and to do some psychological first aid. And those are kind of like the big pieces of what it is that I do. And every now and again, I will consult with management if they need help with something, if an employee is struggling, just trying to give them some tools to be able to make our workforce as best as possible. So I would say that there's a lot of variety, but those are probably the main highlights.
Those are a lot of highlights.
There are a lot of highlights. Every day is a different day.
You are a busy person. So I know your specialty is sleep, and we're going to talk about the importance of sleep. Among all those things, I think your focus has been sleep, and we're going to talk about the importance of all that. But I was really surprised to hear that the FBI had a sleep expert, right?
Let me clarify. My official title is not sleep expert or sleep guru or anything like that, even though that would be super cool. I should probably have some type of special name tag made. That would be super cool. But no, it just so happens that I'm the only one on staff who offers this specialty. And in my over 5 years now as a full-time psychologist for the FBI, it has just grown and kind of snowballed into this huge thing because of how many people struggle with sleep. And also I end up doing, like I said, so much psychoeducation. Yeah. And I think when I'm part of a conference lineup and people don't have other options, but maybe it's a conference where you stay in your seat all day and there's not other breakout options, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, sleep, this is boring. I'm just going to tune out, whatever. And then I make it as interesting as I possibly can, which I find sleep to be fascinating. So then I got your attention. And then we start to have some really good conversations about sleep. So I think this whole time has been me working very hard to let people know why sleep is so important, what's going to happen if you're not getting good sleep, and how I can help you. And so I have made this unofficial name for myself as the FBI sleep expert. And that, if someone within the Bureau, and it's a big, but it's a small
Sure.
organization where I would say maybe 35,000 people, but it is widely known. If you're having sleep issues, you got to call Dr. Kaler.
So how did that progression happen for you? Obviously, you went to school to study psychology and sleep. So tell me about the transformation of Dr. Leah Kaylor and how you came to be.
This is a funny one, because I haven't always been a good sleeper. And so let's rewind way back to undergrad. I went to Ursinus College. I did gymnastics there. And I'm definitely an early bird. I love getting up early. So I would schedule all of my classes at 8 a.m. I would, go to the library, do my homework. And then in the middle of the day, I would take these 3-hour-long naps. Now I'm right now, Leah is looking back at past Leah and I was like, what the hell are you doing? But then I would go to gymnastics practice. I would go to dinner. I would go to the library and study more. And then it would be bedtime and I'm wide awake.
Yeah.
Why can't I sleep? I need Benadryl. I need this. I need that. And, actually, Leah, you're getting in your own way. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together for the longest time. So that was undergrad. I'm not a great sleeper, but I'm really trying. Fast forward to my very last year of my PhD, I'm at the Memphis VA Medical Center. That's where I matched for my residency year. And this is the final year where they make sure that you are very, very well-rounded, that you have the skills, that you have the education to go out onto your own and become a licensed psychologist and practice under your own license. And so during that last final year, it's just absolutely jam-packed with all kinds of experiences and different populations and different type of therapeutic modalities so that you have as many tools in your toolkit as possible to help the folks that you're going to come in contact with. And so I'm at the Memphis VA Medical Center, and one of our very first days, so all the interns, all the postdocs, we all have to come together in a room, and nobody leaves until everyone is relatively happy with all of the rotations that they're going to get. And so this is kind of like this massive puzzle that we all have to put together because there's probably at least 20, 25 of us, and there's so many different rotations, but it all has to work out. It's just this giant puzzle. And there were a few rotations that I knew that I definitely wanted. And at that time, again, my focus was very forensically oriented. So I wanted to do community emergency services where I was going to be out on the streets with law enforcement, with firefighters doing debriefings and crisis intervention. So that was really exciting for me, even though it was the VA. You wouldn't really think of that, but that was one of the rotations. Another one I really wanted was being in the forensic courts and doing forensic assessments and interviews. And again, that was also out in the community. So partnerships that the VA had. But I did do some very cool things within the VA too, but I can't remember, and I'm telling you, I've told this story several times now. I wish I could go back in time and remember if I actually wanted the sleep clinic or if it was one of those ones that I just kind of compromised on because everyone needed to walk out of there relatively happy at the end of the day. So
one way or another, it found
I ended
you.
up. We became a match, and I could not be more grateful that happened. So I end up at the Memphis VA Medical Center. I'm in the sleep clinic. I'm doing this rotation. And again, I don't know a whole lot about sleep. So thank you very much to my advisor at that time who just really taught me all about sleep and what's happening during sleep and why it's so important and what's happening if you're not sleeping well. But while I was there, I'm telling you what, again, that's what your final year of your PhD is all about, is just getting all these incredible skills before you go out into the world. And that's exactly what happened to me on this rotation. Was I learned all about sleep and how to teach sleep hygiene classes and CPAP adherence, because a lot of people don't want to wear their CPAP mask. Makes sense, especially whenever we're talking about veterans and having some type of claustrophobic device over your face. Nightmares and how to treat nightmares. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually do that. So it was just a time of such incredible absorption of knowledge. And I'm could not be more grateful because that is what I've basically built my career on after that. Yeah.
And that's all that's all fascinating stuff. And I'm not saying that as a platitude because I'm someone who struggles with sleep as well. And I've had a challenging sleep.
Most people do.
Like any shift worker, law enforcement, I started my journalism career getting to work at 3 a.m. and working until noon or 4 a.m. And when I was a dumb shithead in my early 20s, I'd go to the bars, go dancing, get home at 3 a.m., take a shower, put on some clothes, and get to the station by 4 a.m. to start. Yeah, I know. And several years of that, I developed sleep apnea, and
Yep.
but probably not a surprise to you. And in between, like that's when I just really started getting into journalism. And you start seeing some tough things. So it was like a big a big miasma of stuff. But my CPAP, I can't sleep without it. Like I can't.
I hear this on the daily. Once you get used to it, because there is certainly like a learning curve of getting comfortable with it, it's like night and day.
It really is. It really is.
It is.
Yeah, sleep apnea is dangerous long term.
It's so
It could kill you,
dangerous.
right? Stop your heart. You
Yes.
stop breathing. And I didn't want to stop breathing.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point, right? Is a lot of people don't realize that they have sleep apnea, and it takes normally another person, either like a roommate or the person that you're sharing a bed with, or someone to tell you, hey, something's going wrong here. Like you need to go have a checkup. So I think that it's really important just for the audience to hear that there are so many people who may be struggling with sleep apnea and waking up exhausted, even though you've been in bed all night, that don't know, hey, maybe there's something else going on. And then you're exactly right. Whenever it's untreated, because I think a lot of people are scared of going to have a sleep study, or what does this mean? Or I'm afraid to have to wear one of those machines. I don't want to do that. You're exactly right. It comes with a lot of untreated sleep apnea. It comes with a lot of cardiovascular issues and this high blood pressure that cannot be regulated by medications like normal high blood pressure would be. It comes with the risk of stroke, of sudden cardiac death. I mean, you name it. There's so much going on. And that's why I put 3 chapters about obstructive sleep apnea in my book, because it's so important that we talk about the scary stuff so that I can kind of scare you into better sleep and better health.
Yeah, and I will testify that the sleep study, it's not scary. It's not painful. It's actually quite pleasant.
Might be awkward.
Yeah, maybe a little awkward. People watch you sleep, but it's a one-time thing. Yeah. And it's all wireless these days, so it's nice and easy. And once you have it resolved, the CPAP is, again, not painful. And once you get used to it, it is night and day. You sleep through the night. You wake up feeling refreshed. It's great. And, I didn't intend for this conversation to be an ad for sleep apnea, or for CPAP machines, but I'm here to tell you it's great. Yeah. What you do is very important work, and to actually make it relevant to people who are listening to this. Let's talk about how you brought that to the FBI and sort of, how you got into doing what you're doing now.
Sure. So I was an FBI intern for a very long time when I was doing my PhD. So when I graduated with my doctorate, then the Bureau offered me a full-time position as a psychologist. And one of my very first days at the Bureau, my supervisor at the time had asked me, like, okay, Leah, what's going to be your thing? And very easily it came to me. I was just like, well, what about sleep? Because whenever it comes to, and we're going back in time. So this was 2020 when I came on full time as the psychologist. And so, and I think we're getting better and better at this, but no matter what, there's still some stigma around mental health and asking for help, let alone within a law enforcement agency, let alone within what we believe to be the most elite law enforcement agency in the world. And even though we have people like myself on staff full-time who are there to support you in your mental health needs, I think that there are just some people who are dubious and who are nervous and who are afraid that, if I come forward, this is going to happen, or this or this. And so that is one of the reasons why we have people like myself on board.
I think that's a pretty common thing. And like in journalism too, I remember at CNN, we would see a lot of tough things, cover a lot of tough stories. We would see and smell things that, would keep us up at night. And there was help on staff for people who want to take advantage of it. But there's a culture in news, like there is, I think, in law enforcement. It's like, oh, I have to take it. I could take it. I don't need to. And so I think it sounds like you're there to help say it's okay.
Exactly. And, we do try and put a ton of messaging out about it's okay not to be okay. Remember, we have all these resources. And so in my mind, when my supervisor said, okay, Leah, what's going to be your thing? Well, I thought, well, how about sleep? Because everyone, no matter who you are, can relate to having a crappy night's sleep. Whether you've got a dog that needs to be let out in the middle of the night, you have a new baby, you have chronic pain, you have acid reflux, whatever. Everyone can relate to having a crappy night's sleep. And there's no stigma around that. Oftentimes, like we just talked about, having, especially when it comes to law enforcement, first responders, and it sounds like news as well, whenever we are running low on sleep, it's kind of this badge of honor. Like, well, you slept 4 hours, I slept 3.
Yep.
And so I just figured, I think that everybody can relate to this, and there's very little stigma, in my opinion, about it. So I thought, why not this be my be my thing, the thing that I put out there into the bureau. And then people will get a chance to get to know me, see that I'm not that scary. Because I think like a lot of times when I disclose I'm a psychologist, people are like, silence. Like, are you writing your dissertation on me? Like, I get a lot of weird questions like that, or they just kind of turn around and walk away. So I thought, okay, this is how I'm going to put my foot in the door of letting people know that I'm not that scary and that mental health can be approachable. And, I am someone who can help you. So why don't we get a chance to get to know each other while I teach you a little bit about sleep?
In general terms, do you remember the first person who really took advantage of what you had to offer and what that experience was like for both of you?
So within the bureau, within the VA, because...
Yeah, well, I mean, either, I suppose. I mean, we were talking, like, I guess the VA would have been a pretty cathartic experience for you the first time go, please.
There's one person in particular who I can really think of, and this individual was having nightmare. I mean, so this person, without giving too much information away, their position was being up in an airplane, but doing a lot of things with the controls. So not actually being a pilot, but helping kind of like behind the scenes, making sure that everything's okay. And to my knowledge, never disclosed having ever been in any type of airplane accident. However, when he came to see me, night after night after night after night was having this nightmare of being in the plane, things going wrong, and having a plane crash. And so severe that he thought in the middle of the night when he was waking up as a result of this nightmare that he was having a heart attack and had to go to the emergency room more than once. So it was so incredibly significant, these nightmares. Eventually we got connected. And I started doing something called imagery rehearsal therapy. And a lot of people don't realize that we can indeed treat nightmares. And this is one of the many ways. And one thing I'll say is with imagery rehearsal therapy, it works best when there is a nightmare that is recurring. And that's exactly what this man was presenting with. And so in a nutshell, what imagery rehearsal therapy is that, and let me kind of rewind a little bit as to why we have nightmares, because my other specialty is trauma. So trauma and sleep go hand in hand. You really can't untangle them even if you try to. So what we think is happening, because the brain is so incredibly mysterious and basically our most complex device in the entire universe. So we know a lot, but we certainly don't know everything that there is to know. So when it comes to the brain at night, one of the many important things that it does is it takes all the information that we have gathered throughout the day, through our eyes, through our ears, touch, all of our senses. And that is an insane amount of information. And we can't hold that, nor should we be storing all of that. So the brain sifts through it and decides, okay, what's important? What do we keep? What do we get rid of? And sometimes there will be triggers or things that are important or things that remind us of something before, even though we might talk about memories or a sound or a smell, something that kind of like brings us back. And oftentimes what is happening whenever we're having a nightmare is the brain is trying to process through something. And when it is unsuccessful in processing through, that's normally when we result with a nightmare, because our adrenaline and our cortisol are so high when we're attempting to process through at night that you end up waking up out of this nightmare. And then the brain is like, all right, well, we'll try again tomorrow. And that's where we end up with this kind of like broken record of our cortisol and our adrenaline are so high. We're trying to process through and it's just not successful. And that's where we end up with this kind of like vicious circle, if you will. And that is where I ended up kind of joining forces with this individual who is having these repeated nightmares.
You, I'm sure, have dealt with plenty of people who have seen horrible things.
Oh, yes.
The very first story we did when we launched our show was on serial killer Israel Keys, and we spoke to FBI agents from the Anchorage office who were part of that investigation and continued to be. One of them just retired, but they saw horrible things that he did to some of his victims. So that's stuff that you carry with you, and if you don't treat it, what are the long-term consequences of not treating trauma, not treating these things that disturb your sleep in your everyday?
I think that the answer to that could be just about anything, right? Like every single person is going to be very unique in how something impacts them. So let's just say, for example, anything. I like to give this example whenever I do, I will give a lecture on trauma. And if I have, let's just say, a big audience, And I give the example of if we are all in this auditorium right now and something very traumatic happens, everyone is going to respond very differently. There will be some people who this is just another day in the park because I've been law enforcement for however many years. Maybe I have a personal history of trauma. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. There are going to be other people who this is the worst thing that's ever happened to them, and they maybe become kind of immobilized by what has happened. And then there's going to be a lot of people in between. And we don't want to forget that the body does know how to heal itself. And so there will be people who in the first few days feel very traumatized and really can't think about anything else. And then eventually the natural healing mechanisms kick in. And we see these people eventually get back to normal, usually within about a month. And then sometimes there's also people who experience post-traumatic growth too, where there's something that's so significant that happens in their life and they come out the other side. And maybe this then becomes a passion for them and they go out and they're advocating or whatever the case may be. So I think that there's lots and lots of different ways that this could go down. But to answer your question, whenever there is trauma that's untreated, it can impact your life in so many different ways, right? So I like to think about it as this like chicken and the egg, like circle that just keeps impacting each other. So when your mental health is not doing well, oftentimes that impacts our sleep. Oftentimes that looks like not sleeping very well, sleeping fragmented, being asleep or in bed for a very long time, but waking up feeling very unrefreshed. So when we have this circle, well, if we're not sleeping well, then our ability to regulate our emotions is not going to be doing very well. So we just have this circle of each are making it worse and worse and worse. And so I'm so incredibly lucky to have specialties in sleep and in trauma where when I'm working with a person, I hit it from both ends and I treat the trauma and I treat the sleep so that people can get back to themselves as quickly as we can get there.
So I'm interested when an agent comes across something horrible, and you mentioned that some people are like, well, this is my everyday, but it's
yeah.
When do you or do they start recognizing the symptoms of PTSD or some sort of other traumatic syndrome for people who do witness horrible things, whether they're an FBI agent or you or me? What are the signs we should look for that?
I hate to sound like a broken record, but again, everyone is so unique. And there will be some people who are very self-aware and they may realize something's going on with me, like I need to seek help. Or there may be people who, and this is a huge thing that I see within law enforcement and first responders, is like irritability and anger, because those are very easy to show and they're very acceptable emotions within this very tough exterior type of position. And so we end up seeing a lot of irritability and anger showing up and just not able to regulate your emotions very well. But also, too, I think that it comes with people telling you, hey, you're not yourself. And whether that's your partner, whether that's your partner at work, whether that is just like a good friend, like someone saying like, hey, like you've changed, like what's going on? So I think that there's a lot of different ways that someone may come to seeking help. And a big piece of me as a psychologist, and I think a lot of mental health professionals will tell you this no matter where they're working, is you have to meet the client where they are. And so there will be a lot of people who, you know, I can think of a lot of people who I've worked with who are not ready for help. They do not want help. Told them to come get help does not work. They have to be at a point where they are interested in their seeking services, and then we meet them where they are. So there will be a lot of people who are struggling, and maybe they think that no one can see that they're struggling, but we're here, and that's also why we're on staff. We're trying to get someone like myself in every field office. That will probably take a little while, but it is a position that we're trying to fill across the nation, in that people do have resources right here in their office so they can seek help whenever they want to. So I would say, I think that there are some people who are self-aware, some people who are not self-aware, and then some people who kind of just get to the end of their rope, or maybe someone else tells them, hey, you got to go seek help. Something's going on with you.
For the people who voluntarily come to you, is there a general sort of entry point for them? Like, is there, I'm experiencing this, or I witnessed this, or I went through this on the job and I'm feeling like this. Is there some sort of common thing that puts them through your door?
No, I don't think so, because I would say for my two specialties of trauma and sleep, I see people who are all across the country and all across the world because of those specialties. So a lot of them are end up being trauma and sleep, but also too, anybody who reaches out or like another mental health professional may say, hey, Leah, like I got someone, do you have some room on your caseload? Or like within my office, I may just have walk-ins. So I think that there's a combination of things. And I think that it's very easy to think that I do a lot of trauma, and I do because that's what I was trained to do. But there may be people who are coming in who are just having a hard time because their work environment is a little bit rough because of maybe like personality dynamics or having a rough time with a supervisor that they're kind of butting heads. So there's also going to be some common like just run-of-the-mill like workplace things, or, you know, whenever someone comes to see a mental health professional like myself, we don't say, you know, you have to talk about work stuff, because work and personal life, you can't really separate those either. They bleed into each other. So sometimes people might come and say like, I'm going through this thing in my home life. I don't know how to deal with this. I'm struggling with childcare or whatever it is. So there could be lots and lots of different things that walk through my door. But I would say trauma and sleep are the two, just because I've made a name for myself in those. But there's no like one size fits all. There's all kinds of things. And every day I'm surprised.
Yeah. And given your role at the FBI, I'm sure you've had to respond to major incidents where you're dealing with lots of people at once. You know,
yes.
Can you give us some sort of example or story about, you know, something like that happened to you, for you? Yeah.
Sure. And without giving too much information, whenever these things do happen, there may be a call for people like myself to go out and to provide services. And often what that looks like, again, is kind of meeting people where they are. So we may offer letting people know we're having individual sessions if you'd like to kind of walk in, like we'll be here at this day at this time for this long, or we may offer group sessions, or if there was like a team of people who were exposed, we'll offer for the team to debrief all together. So it could look like a lot of different things. And I would say that this is probably standard across the board whenever it comes to other law enforcement or first responder agencies, whenever they've been through something, is doing some type of debrief and just letting people know that these services are here for you. And we try not to force anyone into anything like that, because normally that doesn't result in very good results. So we just let people know that we're here for you. And then we might also do some psychoeducation too about, you know, what is trauma? What might you experience? And kind of like what I talked about, where it's not unusual for you to experience some very heightened emotions during those first few days in the aftermath. But typically people really do tend to bounce back after so many days, so many weeks. And if you're not at this particular point, then this is the time in which you should seek professional services. So we normally kind of just do like a very well-rounded response of psychoeducation, offering individual services, offering group services, and kind of debriefing and trying to meet people their needs where we can.
I would like you to mandate some treatment for us, because we're about to talk about sleep. And I want to talk about sleeping well and what we can all do to sleep better. Like I mentioned before, I've had lots of challenges sleeping. A lot of that is lifestyle based. A lot of that is lifestyle I have chosen based. But, you know, what personally has worked for me to get better sleep, aside from traditional sleep medicine like CPAP, for me, it's a combination of sleep medicine, journaling, mindfulness, meditation, and you're just getting stuff out of your mind by the end of the day. That's me. And as you noted, every person is different, but you know, let's talk about sleep hygiene. What can we do to sleep better every night?
I love that you have this routine and that you know what works for you, because I think, again, I will ask people when I'm working with them one-on-one, you know, what's your wind down routine? And people kind of look at me with this blank stare of, what is that? What does that mean? So in today's day and age, we are just go, go, go all day long. And we want things like this. And so we want to be busy. We want to be hustling, because that's the culture and the society that we're living in. But then we also want to hustle and grind until the end of the day and then fall asleep immediately. And then people tend to get very frustrated and upset when it doesn't work. And it just makes sense that that wouldn't work. You know, think about a child. When we're going to put them to bed, like we don't just like throw them into the crib. We would do like a bath time, and we would do like a story time, and we would tuck them in, and we would probably find their favorite stuffed animal, like this whole ritual. And I'm sure any parent listening fully understands this, and that your child would feel gypped if they didn't get this every night. And so we need to figure out what that looks like in adulthood. And what is that that's going to be relaxing and soothing for you? And it sounds like you found it with your journaling. And again, everyone is going to be very unique. One of the things that I really like that may or may not just speak to other people is I do some very gentle yoga moves in the dark with some ocean noise playing. And I'm telling you what, it doesn't matter if I'm tired or not tired. I do that. And it normally lasts like 10, 15 minutes. And there's a lot of breathing that goes along with it. And I'm telling you what, like I am yawning by the time it is over and I am ready to get into bed. And so it's things like that that are relaxing and enjoyable for the person, that is this cue to let the brain and body know, okay, now we are ready for bed.
All those tips you mentioned, they're so important. It's find your thing. And, you know, I think finding your thing can be different for different people.
Totally.
Working out or exercising, that could release energy or could release energy and relax you, or it could create a lot more energy depending on you respond to it, right?
Absolutely. And this is something that I will, and again, I give people general sleep knowledge whenever I do my lectures or any type of education. Take from it what you will. Exercise is fabulous for sleep. Let me start there. However, I recommend for most people that exercising earlier in the day or like into the afternoon is the best time to do it, because yes, you're right. Exercise is going to help us fall asleep faster. It's going to help us fall asleep deeper. We want all those things. But also if you're doing some type of like moderate exercise, your heart rate's going to go up. Your body temperature is going to go up. You're going to release adrenaline and cortisol. Your blood pressure is going to go up. Like you've got a lot of physiological things going on when we exercise. That's fantastic. But normally it does take quite a while for our body to come back down to baseline. Also, one of the things that we need to talk about is your body temperature should drop 1 to 2 degrees in order to fall asleep. That's one of the many cues that your brain and body work together to let you know it's time to feel sleepy. So if you're exercising close to bedtime and you're increasing your internal body temperature because you're sweating, you're working out, then you're kind of working in opposition of what your body wants to do. Now, I give this information to people all the time because this is generally what the science tells us and also what I believe to be true. There will be some people who just love working out right before bed and they tell me that it makes them very sleepy. To each their own, but generally this is what the research tells us about when to exercise to most benefit your sleep.
This is great because you brought up something that about lowering body temperature. There are a lot of myths about sleep.
So
right?
many.
And one thing that I've heard is that take a hot shower before you go to bed because it will relax you, but that's raising your body temperature, right? What are the myths?
So you ask a great question. Whenever it comes to this body temperature, because yes, your body temperature should be dropping 1 to 2 degrees in order for you to fall asleep. And it seems like it wouldn't make sense that a hot or a warm shower would help you. However, it paradoxically does. So what is happening, the research recommends warm. I like hot personally. Again, you do you. But whenever we're taking either a hot or a warm shower, when we turn that off and we step out of the shower, then we're getting into a cooler environment than our shower was, but also the blood is like coming up to the surface and we're getting rid of a lot of internal body temperature heat. So that actually paradoxically does drop your internal body temperature to help you get to that point where you need to be for sleep. So it's very cool. It's strange.
So that's not a myth. What are the myths?
That alcohol will help you sleep well.
Yeah, I'm glad that's not a myth I believe. I learned that one the hard way.
Well, and at one time you probably did believe it. You gave it a try, right?
Yeah, alcohol is not good night's sleep.
Not a good night's sleep. It will certainly make you feel sleepy because it is a depressant. It will sedate you, but that sleep, quote unquote, that you're getting is not quality.
And I have empirical evidence. I wear one of these Whoop bands, right? And it tracks your sleep as best as these things can. And you fill out a journal every day, and Whoop, please sponsor us. But it asks, did you have any alcohol the night before, right?
Yeah.
And I very rarely drink anymore, but on those nights that I do, my sleep quality and my recovery percentage drops precipitously. And that's what it's reading because my body temperature is sky high and I'm not sleeping well. So yeah, kids, don't drink and sleep.
Exactly. Yes. And for those listeners out there, and this is like not meant to be an ad, but this is something that I personally own and bought with my own money is 8 Sleep. Not sponsored, but if you're listening, please sponsor me. I bought this several years ago with my own money, and I'm a very, very hot sleeper. Like, I have a very hard time cooling down. And I've tried overhead fans. I have another fan pointing on me. I've tried like a chili pad. I've tried lots of different things, and like none of it worked. And for the most part, I'm okay. But like June, July, and August in the summertime, forget about it. It's like I'm in a sauna. Like, I've had like cooling comforters, like forget
bamboo
about
sheets,
it. All the gadgets, all the things. And this is the only thing that has helped me. So I just want to put it out there for people because it can help you. After a couple weeks, it learns you, and it will adjust the temperature overnight to help you stay asleep. So your body temperature, again, like we said, should be dropping 1 to 2 degrees for you to fall asleep, but then you can control the bed, and it can go all the way down to 55 degrees, or for people who like it hot, it can go up to 110. And then if you share the bed with someone else, each of you can have your own sides and your own controls. But after a couple of weeks, it learns you, and it's just very cool. And I have no doubt about it that without the 8 Sleep, I would not, in June, July, and August, you could forget about it.
I will go to that immediately after. Yeah. Because I'm in Florida right now.
And I will say,
yes.
And two, here's like a side effect that I have is I travel a fair amount for work, which means that I'm sleeping in a lot of strange hotel beds and everything else. And obviously I don't have my 8 Sleep with me because I just simply can't travel with that. So then I get angry when I'm not in my own bed and I don't have the luxury of like knowing that I'm going to have a really good night's sleep because the bed just stays cool.
Which is why we should try Hilton Sleep Dream mattresses now. We're just going to do ads for the rest of the... But no, you're right. I mean, I travel a lot too for work. And when I'm not in my bed, when I don't have my environment, when I don't have my thing, like,
you know.
I know.
You can feel the difference.
I know we're running short on time, but there is something I really wanted to ask you about that I find fascinating, that I do not understand well, but I want to understand more. And that is EMDR and Brainspotting and how those help. Like, give us a 101 on that.
We would need much more time for a one-on-one, but in a nutshell,
just a basic,
just a one.
Let's do one.
Okay, so let's break it down like very simply. REM sleep, rapid eye movement. That's when our eyes underneath our eyelids are moving back and forth. Rapid or EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is one of the theories behind it is that it pulls from REM sleep because when we're in REM, that's when we're going through all the things from our day. It's helping us regulate our emotions. It's helping to take the information that we want to put into our neural networks and helping us integrate it into those memory circuits. So EMDR, when you are working with someone, and it's most often well known for trauma, but you can do EMDR for lots of different topics. And the way that it was created was through eye movements. So Francine Shapiro created it, and she would have someone think about something traumatic, and she would have them look at her fingers and move them back and forth across their visual field. And the theory behind it is that it is kind of meant to mimic REM sleep and help you process through what it is that's distressing you. And EMDR is only becoming very trendy right now, but it actually came out in the 1980s. Like, that was her dissertation, which is just insane to think about. So that's kind of EMDR in a nutshell, is that especially if I'm doing with trauma, which is most often how I'm using it, ask the person to think about something traumatic in a very like formatted way. You know, I have very specific questions that I'm asking them. And then I ask them to watch my fingers as they move back and forth across their visual field. And, you know, it's incredible. People talk about this memory not, before they come to see me, not being able to shake this memory, it being with them all the time, it kind of being right here, and they're having a hard time living their life. And as we do EMDR, people talk about the memory is kind of like trying to hold sand in your hands, and it just is coming through your fingers. It's harder and harder to hold on to. And typically people tend to feel better within 1 to 3 sessions. Not that you're cured, I'm not saying anything like that, but people tend to feel significantly better after 1 to 3 sessions. So it's pretty incredible. And then Brainspotting 101, in a nutshell, the person who created or founded Brainspotting, Dr. David Grand, he used to go around the world and teach people how to teach practitioners or mental health professionals how to do EMDR, but he found that it didn't necessarily work super well for every single person. So he made some changes. He added music. He slowed down the eye movements. And then he has a fabulous book. It's a very easy read for anyone listening. It's called Brainspotting. And he is the author, Dr. David Grand. And he, in the very first chapter, he talks about Karen, an ice skater that he was working with, and they were doing EMDR together because she was getting ready to go to the Olympics and was just having like an impossible time with this particular trick. And he was doing EMDR, and he had been working with her for like over a year on like performance enhancement and getting ready for the Olympics. And as he was moving his fingers across her visual field, he noticed her eyes kind of wobble and do something strange. And so he thought, okay, like, let's just kind of experiment with this. Like, why don't we just keep your eyes like right here on this space where I saw them do something, like do a little wobble. And he holds his fingers there for about 10 minutes. And in Karen's report, she says that all these like memories just kept flashing through her mind of all kinds of things, like fights with her family and that her grandmother had died and all kinds of things like popping up. And afterwards they were like, okay, that was strange. Like, thanks for trying it out. And then the next day, Karen goes to ice skating practice and she lands that trick that she's been having trouble with and never has an issue again. So it's like, oh, there must be something to this. Like, let's explore. And that's the Brainspotting book is Dr. David Grand just talks about experimenting and trying this with different people. And how about you cover one eye? How about you cover another eye? And so in the very most basic nutshell, that's what EMDR and Brainspotting are. So we'll just have to do another session if you want to do a deep dive, because I cannot tell you, obviously I was trained as a psychologist, and so I have tons of tricks up my sleeve, but EMDR and Brainspotting, more so Brainspotting, are the ones that I pull out almost every single time because I find them to be so incredibly rapid and effective.
That's fascinating. When might something like that be right for someone?
It could be for anyone, honestly. I get this question, and obviously, again, my work makes me a magnet for trauma, but the beautiful thing, especially about Brainspotting, is you can do Brainspotting on almost anything. You can do Brainspotting, and one very cool thing about it is we can do something called expansion Brainspotting, where maybe it's something that you want to grow into, it's something that you want to manifest. You have these goals, and so we can do Brainspotting on how do we get you there towards that. So I would say that there's no right or wrong time. If it's something that intrigues you, if you want to learn more, go listen to Dr. David Grand's book, and if you want to find someone who does Brainspotting, it's brainspotting.com, and then you can click like find a therapist, and then you can filter and find someone who knows how to do this. There's not a ton of us all over the place, but there are people that you can find, and you can also do it virtually, which is a super cool option because, there might not be someone in your town.
I know you're working on a book, and we're going to talk about your book and your YouTube channel and your podcast in just a second. But before we do, I always like to ask, is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have?
Oh, I think we covered a lot. I think that people have a very good idea of trauma, of sleep. I mean, we could talk for days and days and days, but I think that you asked a lot of good questions, and I think that our listeners probably have a very good idea of a day in the life. Yeah,
and I wish we could talk for days and days and days because I find this fascinating.
Yeah.
But you do have a book coming out. It's coming out in October.
I do.
Tell us about it.
It is called The Sleep Advantage. It's coming out on October 1st. I could not be more excited. So in a nutshell, what happened was I went to a conference for first responders several months ago. I did actually 2 different lectures there. One was all about EMDR and Brainspotting, and the other was about sleep. And I had a huge audience. Like, we had to bring more chairs into the auditorium. Like, it was insane. And somebody afterwards was like, thank you so much. This was such a fantastic sleep talk, but my best friend couldn't be here. And she's the one who really needs this information. Do you have a handout? Do you have a website? Do you have a book? I was like, you would read a book if I read it? Like, I'm listening. And basically, like, right then and there, I was like, okay, let's write a book, because the thing that I'm running into now is there's not enough hours in the day for me. So I love doing education, and that's what I'm trying to do a lot of. But also, there's no shortage of people who are having issues with sleep, and I like to do them justice. I like to do one-on-one, very custom sleep plans for people because, again, no one size fits all. And I'm just running out of hours in the day to be able to do that for folks. So I thought, you know what? Let me just take all of this knowledge from all the lectures that I've done, all the research, everything, and put it down into a place where this is going to be your one-stop shop. Like if you're having, well, there's a lot of general information about sleep and just kind of understanding what it is, why it's so important. If you're not getting good sleep, what's going to happen? But then it's like, if you are having nightmares, here's what to do. If you have restless leg, here's what to do. If you think you maybe have sleep apnea, here's what to do. So it's just going to be this handbook of all the information that you could possibly need.
And is it available for pre-order now?
If you go onto my website, drleahkaylor.com, there is a place where you can put your email address on, and we will give you information about as the book comes and when you can sign up for pre-order. So that's what we've got right now.
And where else can people find you? I know you have a YouTube channel, right?
I do. It is on the newer side. So we've got a handful of videos. And basically, I'm just trying to give you some quick hits of knowledge for free. So I have Dr. Leah Kaylor and Dr. Leah Kaylor Shorts. And then that's basically like where most of the sleep content is. And then also you can find me on LinkedIn and you can connect with me.
And there will be links to all of that in the description below this video and this podcast. Dr. Leah Kaylor, thank you so much for joining us. Great conversation.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the hell out of it. Thank you.
So much fun. Thank you.